Hi, I'm ka-en-byou, no relation. And, well, I guess I'm doing one of those one-person podcasts now because for circumstances, well, due to circumstances that I will get into momentarily, I currently do not have the means to make actual YouTube videos. So, this is what I'm doing instead, because I'm still trapped with my own thoughts and I'm about to make it everybody else's problem. So, welcome to the first episode, I guess, of what I'm going to be calling ka-en-byou in the interim, which is. It's just going to be off the cuff rambling about whatever's kind of on my mind. And it's called ka-en-byou in the interim because I'm ka-en-byou, and this is what I'm going to be making in the interim between now and whenever I end up having the means to make real YouTube videos again. So that's what this is. And look, there's a few things that I guess I want to talk about, but really, before anything else, it's probably. I think reintroductions are in order, right? So, as I said up top, I'm ka-en-byou, but I used to be sleep mode. I decided to rebrand at the start of this year, 2025. And that comes after a pretty lengthy absence. And that absence was informed by a few things. All of it kind of contributing to the end of 2024 being really shit for me, if I'm honest. 2024 did not end on a good note for me for several reasons. The first and most important, which is also something that, if you follow my community posts, you would have seen it. So I won't get into detail because that post is still there. It's not going anywhere. But basically, towards the end of last year, 2024, I got myself wrapped up in some basically Twitter drama involving a couple of former friends from the Australian Guilty Gear community. Some pretty heinous accusations were thrown around and some pretty awful things were said, and the fallout of that just kind of left me feeling like, the only thing that my conscience would allow me to do was step away from the fighting game space. And, that kind of ties into the rebranding as well, because since I developed the sleep mode persona, I suppose, as a fighting game community figure, I kind of felt that I had to. Well, because I didn't really want to be actively involved with the fighting game space anymore. I didn't feel right continuing to be sleep mode, so that's why that stopped. So that's really the big one. Again, there's a community post about it. I've written a thread about everything from my perspective on Blue Sky, which is linked in that community post. So if you really need extra details, just go look at that. But that was number one. The second thing that happened was about a month after the Twitter incident. I got laid off from my job, which is comedically evil. But yeah, I got laid off from my job like right before Christmas. And normally us Australians like to think that we're shielded from that sort of thing because the Australian financial year doesn't line up with the calendar year. It actually goes from July to June. But when you work for a company that is owned by Canadian venture capital, you're not really shielded from any of that. So, yeah, I lost my job through no fault of my own. I was made redundant. Thankfully, because of Australian labor laws being what they are, I did get all of my outstanding leave paid out. I got a redundancy payment, and that was enough for me to coast for pretty much right up until the end of January. But because I had no income, that kind of meant I had to make sure all of my bills were paid before I could do anything fun with my money. Which of course leads me to the third act in this series of unfortunate events, which is that my main PC rig died. Just went to turn it on one morning and it didn't turn on. Now, granted, I've said before that my PC is proof that dinosaurs once roamed the earth, so really it's a miracle it lasted as long as it did, but yeah, I haven't got an actual PC now that I can do any sort of really serious editing or recording with. I'm literally recording this off of a 2016 Intel NUC. It's got enough juice to do most of the basic stuff that I want to do, but I can't do anything, bigger that I would like to do. So, yeah, that's the cliff notes for like what happened sort of in the transition from 2024 to 2025 and why, I've been gone for so long and why when I came back in any capacity, I did so under a completely different name. Fortunately, things are starting to look up a little. I suffered through casual food service work for about a month and a half, but I finally landed myself a full-time job with a pretty decent salary. And I've kind of learned in the last couple of months that part of me wanted to completely separate myself from the fighting game space just because of, well, I felt like my experience of what people were saying and how particularly community organizers in my scene behaved and reacted to what was going on, I felt that I'd seen the priorities of what the fighting game space were, and I felt like I was never going to be able to agree with them, so I just completely tried to distance myself. But it turns out I've actually got a lot more friends who are with me, so like I've still I couldn't completely jettison myself from the fighting game space even if I wanted to, and really when you get right down to it, I don't want to, so that's I've still got friends. I'm still hanging out with them and playing games with them. But I'm not, I'm not going to locals. I'm not going to tournaments. I have no interest in competing anymore. I've got no interest in organizing like I used to. I've got no interest in really engaging with the broader fighting game space, at least here in Australia. You know, I've got my friends. That's my scene. You know, the circle has become smaller, and I think I'm better off for it. But yeah, that's what's been going on in my life. Was pretty I had pretty crap luck for a couple months there, for a few months, but things are starting to improve now, and I'm slowly getting a little better. I suppose the next thing is maybe explaining why ka-en-byou. And this one is it's really not that deep, but basically the reason I introduced myself, and you know, a lot of people are probably going to have an understanding of this already, but the reason I introduced myself as, you know, with "Hi, I'm ka-en-byou, no relation," is because the no relation refers to Rin ka-en-byou from Toho, right? And I like Toho, but I'm not a Toho fan. You know, I'm not like super into like the characters the way that a lot of people that I know are. I just kind of have played a few of the games and, you know, gotten filtered at stage 4 on normal difficulty because I'm dog shit at STG. But I've always been entertained by the character of Rin ka-en-byou because everyone affectionately refers to that character as Orin or Oren, which is my name in real life. Like my parents actually gave me the real life first name of Oren, and I'm not kidding. So, like, I guess it's a bit of a multi-layered joke where, like, I'm not a Toho fan, so I didn't name myself ka-en-byou because I was going for, like, the layer 1 reference to the Toho character. I'm going for, like, a layer 2 reference to the fact that I share a name in some respect with a Toho character. But also, in my defense, the final kanji is different. If you look closely, it's actually a different kanji. The byo that is used for the Toho character is the kanji for cat. Neko can be read as byo. And then the kanji that I use is the kanji for, like, painting, which can also be read as byo. It's this is really stupid, but this is the branding I've chosen for myself now. I can't think of anything better. Whatever, man, it's fine. But that's the joke. That's the joke, and that's, you know, why I've picked ka-en-byou. So there you go. I guess, you know, maybe the next thing is, like, you know, what have I been doing? What have I been doing? I've been doing. Okay. So I've in the sort of space between my, you know, departure from the fighting game space and now I started playing a lot of racing games, And I mean, I've always liked racing games. I've always really liked Outrun 2 and Ridge Racer and all kinds of, arcade racing games. I don't like racing simulators. I don't get the fascination with racing simulators, honestly. Like, I mean, I guess I get it. Like, I would prefer that people, like, boot up, Assetto Corsa or iRacing or whatever, instead of, like, put themselves in the, like, objectively fucking terrifying danger of participating in actual motorsports. But also, like, sim racing is, like, the only form of racing game that exists anymore that isn't, like, kart races. And it's like, bro, if you want to drive a car, just drive a car. Like, I don't want to drive a car. I want to pilot a flying saucer that looks like a Ferrari 288 GTO, But it's like, I've always really liked arcade racing games. I played a lot of One Gun Midnight because that's a pretty active sort of game in my region. Everybody plays One Gun Midnight. Bit of Tokyo Extreme Racer as well. Not the new one, because this little hunk of crap that I'm recording on can't possibly run the new TXR in a million years. But I've emulated, TXR 2. I guess played a lot of racing games and just kind of filled my time a little bit with, distraction from the concept of fighting games. For like, I was not in a good headspace for a very long time, man. I won't make this about that though. So I played a lot of racing games. I ended up watching a lot of TV. I watched a lot of TV. I watched. I won't go into my thoughts about it because one of the first things I am going to do when I get a new computer, is make an actual video about it. But I watched both versions of Full Metal Alchemist, and that show basically became my a part of my personality. I adore Full Metal Alchemist. It is an absolutely incredible story. So I've got a lot of thoughts and a lot to say about that. What else did I watch? I ended up watching all of Steven Universe with my partner as well. That show's a lot of fun. Steven Universe is a fantastic show to watch and then never engage with any online discourse about it ever. Just if you don't look up any Tumblr posts or YouTube videos about Steven Universe, but you just watch the show, you'll have a fantastic time. And just recently, we actually watched both seasons of Severance as well, and Severance was awesome. Dude, Severance was so good. Like, because Severance especially, tickled the very, like, labor, Marxist politics part of my brain. I was thinking, like, watching the shows that, we're literally talking about, like, the separation of the work self and the everything else, the work self and the life self, right? And this experience of literal alienation that these people are, having, like, they're being alienated from themselves in a very literal sense. And it was just like, I don't necessarily think that this show was written by Marxists. Like, I'm not quick to make that judgment. Like, I think it was definitely written by trade unionists. But I'm not super quick to say that it was written by Marxists. However, I also think that there's no way that they didn't read the 1844 manuscripts where Marx literally talks about, like, you know, it's like the worker does not feel himself when he is at work, and he only feels himself when he is not at work. Just, like, it's so blatant, dude. But yeah, no, Severance is so good. It's extremely funny. The set design and the choreography, like, you know, the set design and the shot composition of so many, like, things is fantastic. The music is phenomenal. The performances are all incredible. I mean, like, I already liked John Turturro after seeing his performance in the Batman, but, like, his performances in Severance was just phenomenal. Really cemented him as one of my favorite actors. Same with Christopher Walken as well. Christopher Walken was incredible in that show, and I was very pleasantly surprised to find that, like, the first romance subplot introduced in Severance is old man Yowie. Like, that rules on so many levels. That fucking rules. It was incredibly well executed too. It was very, very, you know, very cute, very tender, very, like, you know, Alex and I were making this joke as well. Like, my partner and I were making this joke. Is it's like, you know, the fact that they don't ever, like, kiss or anything actually makes it gayer, because, you know, as we all know, the gayest thing you can possibly do is yearn. And I mean, really, I think, you know, we gotta, oh, and people have been, right, but, like, we gotta give Tramell Tillman his flowers for his performance as Seth Milchick. Like, Mr. Milchick is, especially towards the end of season 2, he very quickly became, like, one of the most interesting characters in the show. Because, you know, the show is doing so much with, like it's really saying a lot about, and, you know, plenty of, like I've seen a few videos as well from, like, black YouTube creators talking about how Seth Milchick kind of portrays this horrific, like, caricature, but also not really, like, uncomfortably true to life kind of portrayal of what it's like to be black in, like, the corporate sphere. And I mean, I buy that 100%, right? Like, I think that I don't know, they were just doing so much with Milchick, like, right towards the end, and, you know, his devour feculence was so good, dude. So good. I'm forgetting his name, but, like, actually, whoever was playing Mr. Drummond was doing a fantastic job as well. Like, that character was just such a piece of shit, and, you know, it really does take skill to play a guy who is just so fucking awful in the way that Mr. Drummond was. Like, you know, just incredible performances all around. I would, you know, if you haven't watched Severance, please just fucking watch Severance. Like, it yeah, that's all that's the TV that I remember watching. Yeah, I intend to talk about Full Metal Alchemist. I've also actually got a script in the works for, like, I want to talk about Kamen Rider as well, because obviously, you know, my history is talking about, like, Kamen Rider video games, but, like, obviously I actually watched the show as well, and you know, there's a couple of concepts that I want to talk about regarding Kamen Rider. I think there's some interesting stuff to tackle there, but again, that's for when the computer comes up. But Man, fighting games, huh? Oh boy, fighting games. How do people that like keep on top of like who play like the new release stuff? How do these people live? You know, like I mean, look, I really can't talk much shit about like Street Fighter 6 because I think from like the outside looking in, right? I think that game, barring the one very specific issue that it has with Throw Oki, the game is actually completely fine. I don't, it looks like a perfectly fine and even good game to me, outside of the Throw Oki Zeme situation. And I think I actually get the impression that most Street Fighter 6 players actually agree with that. Because, like, I don't know. People only ever talk about, like, you know, oh, we need the throw loops gone. We need the throw loops gone. But, like, I don't know, most, genuinely outside of that, most Street Fighter 6 players seem pretty happy with the game. So, like, I won't talk shit about Street Fighter 6. But, like, well, before we get into the big one, like it's kind of two big ones, but like before we get into the really big one, we know what the really big one is because it's still being talked about. But like, okay, so let me tell you about Fatal Fury: City of the Wolves. So I played the first beta for that game. Played the first beta for Fatal Fury: City of the Wolves. And a lot of you will probably know this already. My feelings on this are not a surprise. I played the first beta for City of the Wolves and I fucking hated it. That game pissed me off, right? Because, like, that game... Like, okay, the only way that I can explain it is playing City of the Wolves and, like, losing, because, like, I lost a lot, right? Like, I'm fucking just flailing around, kind of trying to figure out what the hell is going on. Trying to figure out, like, you know, how to navigate, you know, the new systems and how you play the game and stuff like that. And, like, when I lost, a lot of the time my losses were frustrating in a way that only modern Street Fighter frustrates me. Like, genuinely the first thing I thought when I was playing City of the Wolves was, oh, I really don't like what two-button throws did to this game. Because, like, like the game pace is all fucked up, I think, right? Because, like, obviously the big thing with City of the Wolves is the rev system. Yeah, so, like, you've basically got the Street Fighter 6 drive meter, but it fills up instead of going down, and instead of drive rush, you've got rev accel. So instead of, like, the super duper forward dash, you just get to do KOF 2002 max combos, right? You just get to cancel EX special moves into EX special moves, and that's kind of the system. And obviously that does the thing where it's like combos get a little longer and everything, but, like, you know, basically everything gets funneled into this system, and that kind of, I mean, it's fine, I guess. Really, the things that kind of I disliked the most about about City of the Wolves initially were, I didn't like how throws worked, because throws in City of the Wolves are like a two-button affair like Street Fighter, so you press light punch and light kick. There's like a bespoke throw animation, and you can they're a lot more accessible than your sort of one button proximity throws that you would see in like KOF, or really even Mark of the Wolves, or every Fatal Fury game prior to City of the Wolves. So like throws were just accessible in City of the Wolves in a way that I didn't like, and also like they actually just directly copied and pasted the fucking like Street Fighter shimmy gameplay thing from. They just directly copied that into City of the Wolves, because there's this new mechanic called Wild Punish, which is supposed to be like your punish counter analog, right? And I mean, like, I guess it's fine, like, on its own. Like, I still think that Wild Punish is a bit overkill, because it's like... So Wild Punish is basically like, if you whiff punish something, then your attack gets extra hits done. If you do like... And like, if you Wild Punish something with like a far D, it gets like an extra 20 frames of hit stun. So you can literally like Wild Punish with a far D and then like dash up and do your like close C into a full feint cancel combo and everything. And it's like, that just feels like complete overkill to me. When they did the KOF 15 thing in this game as well, where every character can special cancel their far heavy punch, their far C. So it's like, I don't know what Wild Punish is doing here. It just feels like overkill, So and like literally, I disliked City of the Wolves so much the first go around that I actually went back and started playing Mark of the Wolves just to see if I actually liked that game. And it turns out I do. I think Mark of the Wolves is really cool. It's like it's really unique in terms of like how it runs aggression, because it's like you're not using... Like, you use feint cancels for pressure and stuff like that, right? Of course, but the way that all of the systems kind of come together is really cool and really interesting, because you have this game where you're like trying to bulldog people with plus frames, but like oftentimes you're leaving gaps in your pressure strings that are just big enough that just defend and thus guard cancel becomes an option. And so then you're kind of like, putting people in situations like, am I going to directly threaten your guard bar like with a guard crush, or am I going to try and bait out one of your attempts to retaliate or escape? Like, are you going to try and press a button? Maybe I can frame trap you or whiff punish or something, or I can catch your jump out, or like maybe if you're so focused on trying to just defend and guard cancel stuff, then that leaves you open to throw, right? And obviously throws being like proximity affairs in Mark of the Wolves, they're a lot less accessible as like very direct mix-up options, but they play like a much more kind of niche role that really fits in with like the pace of the game. I literally played a set like just before this on Fightcade with someone, and in the space of like 45 minutes to an hour, we had played like nearly 50 games. Granted, all but like 2, 3 of those games, I lost. I got my ass handed to me, but like it was really fun. It was really, really fun, because it's like you get those moments where you feel. You get to run your pressure, you get to make reads on your opponent's defensive options. Like it's an incredibly fun and engaging game, and I just wasn't getting that with City of the Wolves. But by the time they announced the second beta, I thought, okay, I'd better, you know, I want to solidify my feelings on this. I want to make sure, that if I'm going to decide that I don't like this game, I want to make sure I have a good reason for it. So I was like, okay, I'll play the second beta. I'll see how I feel about it. And then they announced fucking Cristiano Ronaldo as a playable character. And like, I'm sorry, what? Look, I don't need to get into like, are you fucking kidding me? There's so much wrong with this, right? There's so much wrong with this. Like, it's wrong because of, Cristiano Ronaldo as like a guy, like the guy with, active sexual assault allegations and hush money allegations. Like the court case for that is still ongoing. It's bad because Ronaldo plays for a football team that is a direct part of the Saudi Arabian Football League. So so much for the Saudi majority share in SNK not affecting game development at all. And it's bad because like this is just it's a total like violation of any creative integrity the game had. And like, look, like this sucks, right? And so I was like, well, I guess I'm not buying the game, but I'll still mess around with the second beta anyway because it's free, and I at least want to see how I feel about like it as a video game and not as like a passing judgment on like its a roster or it's the politics that kind of inform its production, because like the saying goes that there's no ethical consumption under capitalism, and like that's true, but the key thing really is that there's no ethical production under capitalism. These things are always going to be compromised in some way or another, and that's not going to change until capitalism goes, right? But I was like, okay, well, I'll just see how I feel about the video game. And so I played the second beta, and before any of my other complaints were able to surface, I just realized that I just think the game feels like ass, right? Like, I've seen people make the joke that's just like, oh, this really is a sequel to Mark of the Wolves because movement sucks, but like, I don't know, man, I've played a decent amount of Mark of the Wolves the past couple of weeks, and like, movement does not suck in that game, Like, walk speeds are pretty generously fast. Dashes are really fast and cancelable with almost anything. Backdashes have, like, full invincibility, which isn't something you can say for City of the Wolves, because City of the Wolves also copy the thing that Street Fighter is doing where backdashes are only invincible to throws for some fucking reason. Fighting games are so scared to have defensive options now, I guess. Oh my god, speaking of defensive, like, I also fucking hate how they gutted guard cancels in City of the Wolves as well. And, like, I get wanting to, like, limit the reward of guard cancels, because, like, people are better at fighting games now than anybody in 1999 could have imagined, right? So, like, wanting to limit the reward of guard cancels in City of the Wolves makes total sense to me. I'm on board with that, right? And so I was like, okay, so you just scale the damage a little bit on guard cancels. That's fine. The scaling on guard cancels is fucking insane. Like, I saw in like the first TNS tournament that they ran during the first beta, I saw someone do a guard cancel level 2 Buster Wolf with Terry, and that shit did only like 20% damage. Like, which is just fucking insane, because like, if the thing about guard cancels in Mark of the Walls and City of the Walls, is they can only be done out of a just defend, right? But it's not just you just defend and then you dial in the move. The window's not big enough for that. If you want to do a guard cancel, you have to input the motion for a special move and then just defend and then hit the button. And the game has a really long special move buffer window for that exact reason. So you can so like guard cancels are extremely deliberate in Mark of the Wolves and in City of the Wolves as well. And obviously, you know, they're insanely rewarding in City of the Wolves because it's like there's no extra scaling or anything. You know, you just you just do a guard cancel super and they just die. But like in City of the Wolves, not only do guard cancels scale your damage to an absolutely insane degree, they also build up your rev gauge, which is just fucking wild to me. It's just absolutely wild. They're like, it's like SNK is so afraid of the potential of people getting really, really good at guard cancels that they kind of are making them effectively, like, I don't know why you would ever use a guard cancel in City of the Wolves other than to kill someone, maybe. Like, you know, if they're on their last, you know, 5% of their life bar, then maybe it's worth it. But, like, I don't know why you would guard cancel in that game, because there's just no reward to it. And, like, guard cancel is, like, it's extremely deliberate. It's not easy to guard cancel stuff. Like, guard cancels in Garo are, like, they are the parries. They're like the Street Fighter 3 parries of Garo. They're extremely deliberate. You need to be like, not necessarily be making like a read to get it, but it's like, you know, you're preparing well in advance of something, right? There's just no reward in it. But like, you know, so like I just, there were so many mechanical decisions that I didn't like. Playing the game, it's like, you know, movement felt terrible in a way that it just isn't the case in Mark of the Wolves. It felt like I was wading through mud. And like the game just felt terrible to me. I just did not like how it felt. And then they announce another playable character. And it's some fucking DJ that nobody has ever heard of. And then it comes out that this particular DJ plays a lot of shows for like events and like golf tournaments and shit that are run by the Saudi state. And it's like, this is so fucking brazen, man. Like, I don't know what the end game is, because like nobody, this isn't making people like the Saudi Public Investment Fund. Everybody thinks this sucks, you know? Like, people who were excited for City of the Wolves are like, you know, I'm not fucking buying this game anymore. This is dog shit. And it's like, and I mean, I can't, I have no way to independently verify this, but I have seen someone say that apparently, like, the Saudi royal family is just living in their own kind of, like, pop culture bubble, because apparently for, like, some WWE event that they wanted to run, they requested that WWE bring back Ultimate Warrior and Yokozuna, despite the fact that Ultimate Warrior had been dead for like 4 years and Yokozuna had been dead for like a decade. I can't independently verify that. Please do not treat this as like this is hearsay, right? This is gossip, right? I can't tell you that that's objectively true, but it would explain why, you know, the Saudi government is like, because obviously this is part of the sports washing thing, right? Like they're trying to sanitize their image by, you know, getting everything, you know, by putting their fingers in so many different cultural pies and everything. But like, this is just who is this for? Like, does Mohammed bin Salman want to fucking play as Salvador Giacchi or whatever the fuck his name is in Fatal Fury? And like, I just fucking feel bad for Yasuyuki Oda, man. Like, this is like a passion project for him. He has wanted to finish the story set out in Garo Mark of the Wolves for like a decade. And this is what his passion project has been reduced to. It's fucking sad, man. It's fucking sad. And, you know, at least now I get to unreservedly hate City of the Wolves and no one can tell me that I'm wrong. But it's like, is it worth it? You know, it's just fucking sad. And, of course, speaking of sad... oh, I feel so bad for Tekken players, man. I feel so bad for Tekken players. I mean, like, Tekken 8 was already extremely divisive, right? But Season 2 comes out and they just... what do you even say about, like, what's been happening? Like, okay, initially, again, I don't play Tekken 8. I'm not really, like, a strong Tekken player in any respect whatsoever. I do like old Tekken. I will advocate for people playing like Tekken 5 Dark Resurrection. I mean, fuck, Tekken 3 has rollback on Arcadesia. Like, you know, I'm all in favor of people playing old Tekken. Like, I mean, fuck, man. Play Tekken 6 or Tag 2 on RPCS 3 if you really want to. Like, it's all fine. You know, at least you can fucking backdash in those games. At least sidestep, you know, works some of the time. But, like, you know, like, I've got an outsider perspective looking at Tekken 8 as well. But, like, I see what they're doing with this game, and it's like, I remember when before the game came out, I had it in my head for a little bit. The character trailers very quickly, you know, knocked me out of my delusion. But for a while, I had it in my head that the heat and, you know, white life systems and the chip damage mechanic would only make sense in a game where movement is strong. Because I thought, stupidly, that, you know, like, you have this system which is designed to encourage and reward, you know, offense and aggressive play, right? You know, you pop heat, you get to, like, you know, maybe run a mix-up. Well, you definitely get to run a mix-up, but, like, you know, you get to run a mix-up, and now all of your attacks deal chip damage, right? All of your attacks deal chip damage. And that chip damage, as, you know, recoverable life, that recoverable life can only be recovered by, you know, landing hits, right? By, like, you know, having your attacks make contact. So I thought that Tekken 8 was going to be this game where it's like, yeah, we want to encourage offensive play, but we want to encourage it in this really, like, we want to encourage, you know, dynamic and interactive offense where it's like, you know, players are rewarded for pushing their own offense, but people are also, like, defenders are also rewarded for, like, finding ways to move around their opponent's offense and use that to create opportunities to establish their own offense, right? Because it's like, you know, you restore your white life by pressuring and landing hits, yeah? So I thought, you know, well, that's how this push and pull is going to work, right? The movement is going to be strong movement is going to be the system that ties together all of these, different systems that are meant to encourage offense, right? And it's not going to compromise how Tekken, sort of historically works, where every single poke and every single mix-up has this element of timing attached to it, because it's like, do I attack immediately, or do I delay my attack option and, forward dash, crouch dash, whatever, to realign and catch a potential sidestep, right? There's whole layers of interactivity going on in every single thing in Tekken, and that's what makes it cool. And then Season 2 rolls around, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna buff defense. Anyway, we turned every character into the fighting game equivalent of a fucking wood chipper, because, they turned Jun Kazama into Hwarang. Like, Jun Kazama, a character who has historically been, like, she was the basis for the design of Asuka, who is, like, the most, defensive, like, but Jun and Asuka both are built around, like, defensive play. They're built around, like, catch counters and sabakis and parries and counter hits and stuff like that, right? And they gave Jun looping stance pressure. Every single character has some kind of stance or some shit that, like, stances in Tekken 8 exist only to be vehicles for 50-50 mix-ups. And, like, Tekken 8 is the only game that has this problem. It's fucking wild. And so, like, genuinely, for a while, I thought that the people who were in charge of Tekken 8 were just fucking stupid. And like, I want to make it clear, this is not a situation of, like, because I've seen a few Tekken players very quickly be like, oh, they had Soul Calibur developers on this game, and the Soul Calibur devs have put their stupid, icky Soul Calibur ideas into Tekken, and that's why it sucks. And I just want to be clear about the fact that one thing that Soul Calibur in general, and especially not Soul Calibur 6, what Soul Calibur has never done is nerf its movement mechanics into total irrelevance. And that didn't come from the Soul Calibur developers on the team. Likewise, and not that I imagine Tekken players really give much thought to it, but Yohei Shimbori, the guy who directed Dead or Alive 6, is also on the dev team for Tekken 8. And I'm pretty sure he didn't tell. I'm pretty sure he didn't tell Harada and Michael Murray and Nakatsu to nerf movement into non-existence, because Dead or Alive 6 had a sidestep mechanic that was so strong it had to be nerfed. And even after the nerfs, it was still a sidestep that was literally fucking invincible to any attack that didn't have an explicit tracking property attached to it. So, like, all I'm saying, man, is I think, the call's coming from inside the house. And, like, I think that, initially I thought that the Tekken devs, like, the people in charge of the direction for this game, were just fucking stupid. I thought they would, they must be deeply unimaginative. There is so much design space that you can work with to make a game like Tekken 8 with the heat system and with, chip damage and all of these, things that they've added in to encourage, like, there's a whole heap of design space here to make these systems fit together with characters and toolkits in interesting ways that don't compromise how Tekken has historically played. But instead, they seem to think that aggressive play is just, I get to do my 50-50 on you, and then I get to do another 50-50 on you, and like this is how aggression works, and there is nothing more interesting or dynamic beyond that. That was the like they're just, you know, they're just stupid and deeply unimaginative. However, I'm not so sure about that now. See, I've watched a little bit more of, you know, what's actually happening in season 2, and a lot of the changes are so bafflingly stupid that I actually think this has to be like a willing act of self-sabotage. Like, this has to be shit on purpose. Right? And maybe I'm just coping for all of you Tekken players now, but like, there's no logical explanation for how fucking bafflingly terrible all of these changes. Like, they gave Brian a fucking homing hatchet kick from crouch that wall splats on counter hit, and it's only minus 12 on block. Like, no one in the entire universe was asking for that. No one in the entire universe thought that was a good idea. Not any of the players, anyway. So, like, this has to be, like I think Harada, I think Harada doesn't want to make Tekken anymore, man. I think that's what's happening. I think Harada doesn't want to make Tekken anymore. He's trying to kill Tekken because he doesn't want to do this shit no more, man. Oh, maybe the conspiracy theory is that he's trying to kill Tekken 8 so that he can convince Bandai Namco to push the big red button and let them re-release Tekken 5 Dark Resurrection with rollback. I fucking wish, man. Oh my, like, I don't know. There's, like, I think if there's one lesson to draw out of what's been happening with fighting games recently, it's get yourself a half decent laptop or like a mini PC or whatever, like Intel NUC, even a fucking HP Elite desk or whatever, right? Get yourself some, you know, fucking dinky PC that can run, you know, emulators and shit, or like, you know, fucking install get a PS3 and install custom firmware on it. Get an Xbox 360 and install RGH3. You know, like, hack your fucking video game consoles and just play something, right? Like, I've been saying on Blue Sky, like, we have never needed old fighting games more than we need them right now, right? Like, take a fucking hacked console or a PC or whatever to your locals and start playing, like, just start playing old shit, man. Like, play DR, play fucking CVS2, play, like play fucking Street Fighter 4 if you really want. Like, play, like, the only game that I would actually recommend that you spend money on right now is VF5 Revo. And really, that counts as an old game because VF5 is 20 years old. Like, you know, everything else is just fucking play literally anything other than what you are being offered. Is, I think, that's the lesson to draw from all of this. Play literally anything other than what you are being offered, because what you are being offered is crap and it doesn't respect your intelligence. So yeah. Well, anyway, I've been yapping for like a fucking hour now, so I'm gonna cut the feed here. But yeah, I don't know, if you like this sort of thing, leave a comment, let me know. I'll do something else like this the next time I am, you know, overloaded with thoughts that I need to get off my chest. If you have, you know, opinions about anything and you want to chat about this sort of thing, please, you know, let me know. But yeah, I'll leave it for now. Thanks, guys. I hope to see you again soon. Peace.